Hello everyone, I'm Elvisual. You probably know me more from my video editing content. On this channel, I share videos about my personal projects outside of video editing, from small ideas to larger creations. In this video, you're going to see a general breakdown of a graphic novel-style project that I've been working on for almost 3 years. One of the most challenging parts of the project was creating the characters and scenes. At the beginning, I used tools like Character Creator 4 and Blender to create the first pages of the story. However, for reasons I couldn't fully understand or solve, I was never completely satisfied with how the characters looked after exporting them from CC4 into Blender. There was always something a little off. The eyes didn't look quite right, and there were several other details that felt strange. No matter how much I experimented, I couldn't really figure out what the problem was. So I started looking for alternatives, and that's when I discovered MetaHuman Creator, which could be used online. I did a few tests, and the results looked really impressive. I spent some time recreating several of the story's characters in MetaHuman, and the results were great. But there was another problem. These characters could only be used inside Unreal Engine. I had a choice to make. Either I would learn Unreal Engine from scratch, which would make an already slow-moving project take even longer, or I would continue using my CC4 characters. I thought about it for a while and, well, I said, why not? Let's learn yet another piece of software. So I started learning Unreal Engine. I watched countless tutorials on YouTube, then another one, and another one, and another one. Within a few months, I had learned the fundamentals, and I finally imported the MetaHuman characters I had created online into Unreal Engine. The next step was giving the characters their outfits. To learn how to do that, I watched a few more tutorials. Rather than creating everything from scratch, I decided to save some time and purchased a variety of clothing assets from ArtStation. I didn't just buy clothing packs, I also picked up several Kitbash packs, including sci-fi panels, doors, hard surface models, and game-ready hairstyles. To dress the characters, I exported the MetaHuman body and face meshes from Unreal Engine to Blender as FBX files. I then selected specific clothing pieces and adjusted them in edit mode so they would fit each character properly. Once the clothing was fitted, I transferred the MetaHuman skin weights to the garments, allowing them to deform correctly with the character's animations. After that, I exported everything back into Unreal Engine. The final step was creating and assigning materials for the clothing inside Unreal Engine. So far, I've gone through this process for around 22 characters, and at that point, the outfits were finally ready. Now it was time for what would probably become the most time-consuming part of the entire project: building the environments. For this particular section of the story, I needed to create a small town. To get started, I gathered some reference images from Pinterest and organized them in PureRef. Creating a scene that feels natural and believable is actually more challenging than it might seem. To get even more visual information, I also picked a specific area on Google Maps and spent some time exploring the surroundings. This gave me a better understanding of the layout, architecture, and overall atmosphere of the location. My goal is to make the town look similar to the one in this reference image. The first step was creating the terrain using a height map in Unreal Engine's landscape mode. Once the terrain was in place, I started downloading a large number of assets through Quixel Bridge, including materials, 3D assets, plants, decals, and various environment props. After that, I created a simple landscape material and applied it to the terrain. The very first thing I placed was the road network. This helped establish the layout of the town and gave me a much clearer idea of where all the buildings would eventually go. I I purchased the house models from ArtStation and the larger building models from CG Trader, then started placing them roughly throughout the scene. At this stage, nothing needed to be perfect. The goal was simply to establish the overall layout and determine where everything would go. Using one of the characters as a scale reference, I adjusted the size of the houses and buildings to make sure they felt believable within the environment. Once I had a rough idea of where the major buildings would be placed, I could finally start working on the finer details of the town. As the environment gradually filled with smaller details and props, the scene in my head started becoming much clearer. The more pieces I added, the easier it became to visualize the final result, and the faster the entire process started moving forward. Once most of the buildings were roughly in place, it was time to focus on the smaller details that would make the town feel believable. Things like traffic lights, road signs, crosswalks, playground equipment, outdoor benches, and similar details are what really make the town feel realistic. To prevent the town from feeling abandoned, I used some low-quality crowd scan models that I purchased from CG Trader. While they aren't suitable for close-up shots, they look convincing enough from a distance and helped make the town feel much more alive and populated. As a final touch, I added trees, grass, and other vegetation throughout the scene. Not only did this help cover empty areas, but it also became one of the biggest contributors to the overall visual appeal of the environment. As you can see in the reference photos, this type of town benefits greatly from having plenty of greenery, and it ended up matching the look I was aiming for almost perfectly. I also tried to be strategic with where I spent my time. I only added a high level of detail in the areas that would actually be visible on camera. Instead of wasting time detailing every corner of the environment, I used camera angles, composition, and vegetation to hide areas that wouldn't be seen, allowing me to focus my effort where it mattered most. After a few final adjustments, the town environment was finally complete. The entire process took roughly a week. The next step was capturing high-resolution screenshots from the viewport and bringing them into Photoshop for further editing. You might be wondering why I used screenshots instead of rendering directly from Unreal Engine. For some reason, whenever I tried rendering with Movie Render Queue, the results either looked much worse than expected, or Unreal Engine would crash at around 98% completion. Since I only needed still images rather than animation, high-resolution screenshots ended up being more than enough for my workflow. With the town scene finished, it was time to create the neighborhood where the main character lives, along with his house. I followed the same process as before: roads, trees, houses, and all the surrounding environment details. By this point, every new scene became faster to build because I had gained more experience and developed a much clearer workflow. One major advantage of these house models was that they included interior spaces, even if they were fairly basic. This saved me a huge amount of time when creating scenes inside the main character's home. For example, I only needed to add a few extra assets to the kitchen before creating scenes like the ones you're seeing now. The most time-consuming part was designing the bedrooms of the two main characters, Ethan and his daughter, Sophia. Rather than filling their rooms with random objects, I wanted every item to reflect something about their personalities and interests. I paid extra attention to these details because they help strengthen the storytelling. Since I'm not creating this project in the traditional novel format, I try to communicate as much information as possible through visuals rather than text whenever I can. Let's start with Sophia's room. Sophia is a character who is passionate about biology, especially insects and discovering new species. To support that idea, I created and assembled a variety of assets in Blender. Some were made from scratch, while others were created using kit bash techniques. I also downloaded specific reference images from Pinterest, which were used for the notes, diagrams hanging on the walls, and of course, there were the books. After creating several unique books this way, I ended up with a collection of assets specifically designed for Sophia's room. Once everything was finished, I exported the assets into Unreal Engine and arranged them throughout the room. The final result was incredibly satisfying and made the space feel much more personal and believable. I followed a similar approach for Ethan's room. Ethan is a former jet pilot who developed a strong interest in space and astronomy after retiring. To reflect that aspect of his character, I created and gathered a variety of themed assets in Blender, then exported them into Unreal Engine and placed them throughout the room. The goal was for each room to tell a story about the character who lived there, even before a single line of dialogue was spoken. For the next part of the story, I needed to create a school environment. As you can probably guess, I followed many of the same steps again and built a small school environment for the scene. The school building itself was modeled in Blender using a very minimal approach. It's essentially made up of simple geometric shapes, and I didn't even model the backside of the building because it was never going to be visible on camera. Throughout this project, I've tried to save time whenever possible. Instead of spending countless hours modeling details that would never be seen, I focused my effort on the parts that actually mattered for the final shot. The time I saved was often invested into learning. I spent a lot of time watching tutorials on topics like lighting, camera angles, cinematography, and composition. One thing I've learned is that even a relatively simple or low detail model can look surprisingly high quality when it's presented with strong lighting, good camera work, and thoughtful composition. Lighting, in particular, has become one of the most important parts of my workflow. Even small adjustments can completely change the mood and feel of a scene. Because of that, I made a conscious effort to spend extra time learning and improving these skills, and it ended up being one of the most valuable investments I made throughout the entire project. This is the stage where I edit the high-resolution screenshots captured from Unreal Engine and Photoshop. Most of the work is already done at this point. I'm mainly adding a few extra lighting overlays, making small adjustments, and applying subtle enhancements to give the scenes a more cinematic look and feel. When I first started this project, my original plan was to create it in a traditional illustrated graphic novel style. However, at the time, my drawing skills weren't quite at the level needed to achieve the quality I had in mind. Instead of forcing myself down that path, I decided to focus on the skills I already had and continue developing them further. That's ultimately what led me to create the project in this more cinematic, 3D-driven style. One of the biggest advantages of this approach is flexibility. Yes, building the environments and preparing the characters takes a significant amount of time, but once everything is ready, I can freely experiment with camera angles, lighting, composition, and different shot ideas until I find exactly what works best for the scene. Of course, there are downsides as well. Very few graphic novels are created in this style, so I'm a little nervous about how people will respond to it. It's not a traditional approach, and I honestly don't know how readers will react. But at the same time, that's also part of what makes the project exciting. I'm trying something different and seeing where it leads. So far, I've completed 137 pages. When I look at that number after 3 years, it sometimes feels like progress has been slow, and honestly, it can be a little demotivating. But then I remind myself that those 3 years weren't spent creating pages alone. During that time, I was also writing the story, learning entirely new software and workflows, rebuilding older pages, solving technical problems, and constantly improving the quality of the project. When I think about all of that, the pace starts to make a lot more sense. If I end up finishing the story the way I currently envision it, I estimate it will be somewhere around 500 to 600 pages long. Keeping that in mind, I know this project still has several years ahead of it. My current plan is to start sharing the story publicly once I complete the first major section, which should be around 150 to 170 pages. From there, I'll gather feedback and use it to help guide the next stages of development. The truth is, I have a lot of project ideas. Some are small, while others are just as ambitious as this one. I want to continue expanding this story and developing its universe even further. Beyond that, I'd also love to create another world entirely. Something less futuristic and science fiction focused, and more grounded in either fantasy or a realistic historical setting. Of course, those are just ideas for now. At this rate, they could easily take a lifetime to finish. So for the moment, it's probably best to stay focused on this project and see if I can win the ongoing battle with myself and actually bring it to completion. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Realistically, I don't expect these videos to reach a huge audience, and that's okay. I'm making them partly as a way to document the journey. Maybe one day, if I manage to finish this project, these videos will serve as a reminder of all the challenges, experiments, and lessons that were part of the process. I plan to make a few more breakdown videos like this in the future, and as the project continues to grow, there will definitely be more to share. Until then, thank you for watching and take care.